Hey there, it's James Taylor, and I'm delighted to have here today Pravin Shekar. Pravin is a startup specialist, parallel entrepreneur, and speaker on agile entrepreneurship, guerrilla marketing, and business networking. He heads KREA, which is India's leading healthcare research panel, and is an angel and social investor in entities like INS8, which does agile research, Kando, which is a BPO by and for the physically challenged, and KASE, which is a fresh cheese making entity. I'm going to have to learn about this. He's a recipient of the Emerging Leader in Market Research, the 4 Under 40 Award from the American Marketing Association, and is president of the Market Research Society of India and a trustee of the Javan Stem Cell Research Center. He describes speaking as his alternative career, but one that's taken him so far to 4 continents. Outside of speaking, he is a keen photographer, and his images have been published in National Geographic Traveler and Lonely Planet India. It's my great pleasure to have Pravin with us today. So welcome, Pravin.
Thank you very much, James. I look forward to it.
So it's fantastic having you here. I know you and I have been working together, but you're a Speakers U member and I've been kind of coaching you. But before we kind of get in, because I think you're doing really cool things when it comes to online summits. Before we get into that, tell me, how did you get started in this world of speaking? Where did it begin for you?
I've been speaking quite a bit, but on stage internationally, it was 2006 in Rome when I did my first big speaking. And this was based on synopsis and ideas that you have to send across to conventions before. None of this was paid until 2009 when I had my point of inflection. The talk that I gave in Switzerland catapulted me to another league. And that was possible due to a couple of mentors that I had. But that was when it started. My speaking career, not the professional speaking, but the speaking part of it internationally started in 2006.
And who, as you were getting started as a speaker, who were those early role models for you? Who were the speakers that you looked at and you thought, I'd like to be, either have that type of career as a speaker, or you just really admired the craft and the way they spoke?
I have been inspired by a lot of people, so I can't name one role model, but I can name a couple of mentors. Now, in the business sector, I have a business mentor called Jay Krishnan. When I was in the beginning of my speaking career, he was there in all the talks. There was another gentleman, Ray Pointer, who was also instrumental in my 2009 talk. And these are people whom I had admired the way they captivated the audience. None of these are professional speakers, but they are speakers and entrepreneurs in their own right. So those are the 2 really big ones that I can name. But other than that, James, I love listening to talks and getting inspired, because you never know these small bits that spark something a little bit that grows on you.
Absolutely. And you and I have spent a lot of time together in Singapore, and also at the Professional Speakers Association of India that you're heavily involved in as well. And you're obviously a Speakers U member. And one of the things I was really impressed with what you did is, one of the things we teach at Speakers U is about creating online summits or virtual summits. And so a number of our members have created their own virtual summits, but you took it a few steps further. So first of all, tell us, what was it that interested you about the idea of doing virtual or online summits?
I'm a crazy networker, James. I love meeting people, but then you meet with a purpose, the connection is stronger. So last year at the APSS Singapore Summit, you did a pre-convention workshop and you blew our minds away from what a virtual summit is. That caught on. We then started the coaching part of it, and you were so free in giving the information that I decided to continue on when I launched my first summit called the Global Referral Summit, because as speakers, as an entrepreneur, bulk of the business comes through word of mouth and referrals. That's the most economical way to grow your business, but there's no strategy around it. So that was how the Global Referral Summit came about, because there is a need and not too many people know about the need. We followed your guidelines to the T. But what we decided is, can we do a summit to raise awareness about blood cancer, that it is curable, that there is a particular need for people to be aware, because all through in movies and TV serials here in India, James, if you've got blood cancer, you're dead. But in specific cases, there is a possibility to reverse it. And that is why we tied up with Jeevan, which is a non-profit, to raise awareness that there is a cause like this that goes ahead and does. So that was our first step, which is the Global Referral Summit. 30 global referral and word of mouth experts. That was launched a couple of months ago, phenomenal success, and that's setting the stage for the further summits.
So what did you learn about doing that very first summit? Because often when I coach people on virtual summits, the first one I always tell is the most difficult because your learning curve is going to be going to be the fastest, and you're doing all these things, and there's a technology, and then there's interviews, and then there's the marketing. What were some of the key learning points for you? Maybe some of the things that you really struggled with at first, you had to really develop learning on, and what were those things that you found actually I really enjoy doing when creating a summit?
So I'm an entrepreneur, and the first thing that comes to me is I have to do it myself. And I tried doing it myself in between my other professional speaking gigs. And a month after month after month, suddenly I had committed a summit because you had thrown a 100-day challenge. And 100th day, and there was no summit in sight. And so the first thing I did is form a team around. And I had a couple of really good guys. One guy is a rock star, KP Karthapandi, my colleague, who became the fulcrum. And once the team got set, James, it was that much more easier for me to focus on strategy while the team took care of scheduling, the pre-interviews, the actual interview, and taking care of the entire studio setup and having everything ready. The first 3-4 interviews, we made sure we brought in some big guns. We got celebrities. I had Bob Berg, I had Ivan Meissner, Andy Lopata, who was also there at the APSA Singapore. And that set the stage for the other speakers because the first question that came is, who else is there? And the minute they heard these names, they said, yes, I am legit. The conference is legit, and therefore we can go ahead and through. But for me, the biggest learning is form a team. And it was the team. Now, you are coaching me, but through me, the team is getting coached by you. Yeah. Because we all have to read and have these standards and the templates. And now, as a thank you to the team, each one is running their own summit, which is going to be launched in August, November, and early next year. Amazing. So that's, from a company perspective, a thank you to each of them that I'm going to do the support role, and each one of them is going to host their own summit. One on remote sales / inside sales, another one on LinkedIn marketing. And we are also assisting a couple of other Indian speakers and members of the Professional Speakers Association of India to launch their own summits.
But I love that model, what you've done there. And this is one of the things I think I mentioned it probably at that event in Singapore. I think the second or third summit I ever created, I did it with, I mean, I've already got a team, but then I also brought in a co-host as well. And suddenly when you have a team, two interesting things always happen, I think. First of all is you have accountability instantly because everyone's asking, what's happening, what stage is it at. The other thing I think is very interesting from doing that is it brings in a diversity of ideas and views, and it allows you to you're almost like market testing in a very small way with a group of 6 people on a concept. There's a danger sometimes if you just try and do it all on your own, that you can do something and people, when you launch it, and why didn't it work? And someone might say, well, do you not think about doing this? If I'd only, so I love that model that you've done now. So you're doing all of these other summits, and I love the sound of LinkedIn summit. I'm definitely going to sign up for that one as well. So you mentioned this idea about networking with a purpose. For you, where do you see these summits? Is it primarily around just word of mouth about raising your profile and the profile of the other people you're working, or is it generating leads, or is it about bringing in sponsorship or something else?
I would have said all three before the summit, but having run the summit, James, my biggest advantage of the summit is learning. I get to speak and learn from 30 experts. Forget the 2,400 subscribers who came in. I have to prepare for the meeting, and then during the discussion, they throw nuggets that I probably wouldn't have considered. So to me, the number one reason why I'm going to be involved in all these summits is learning.
Yeah.
Networking, of course, will happen because if you and I don't know, but we've spent half an hour talking, there is facial recognition, there is top of mind. And the minute you say outlier marketing, my name comes in. The minute virtual summits are told, then James Taylor comes in through. And that is my main reason is when I learn, my subscribers and my followers will learn automatically.
Yeah.
Right? And two, if I may,
Yes.
what we are doing is from the 30 interviews, we have picked up 8 to 10 points per speech and are launching a key learning ebook from the 30 speakers as a thank you, a delayed thank you, but then every week there is a gift that goes out to the delegate. Each of these speakers has a book, has a program, has something that they would like to offer. And that's our way to thank you and also stay in touch with all these subscribers.
That's fantastic. I love that idea. I remember seeing when a mutual friend of ours, Shirley Taylor, who's also a Speakers You member, when she did her summit, because she comes from being an author primarily, it was very natural for her to create that book. And I've never done it with any of my summits yet. So I applaud you for doing it. Because I think it's such a natural thing when you've taken in all that information. And some people, frankly, they maybe don't have the time to go watch all the videos. And they just said, can I just buy, and some people like to read, that's how they like learning. And if you're able to create that piece of content for them, that provides, great value for them. So now you're starting to build, obviously, your speaking. What are some of your goals for the next year or so when it comes to the speaker part of Pravin?
Right. Just to take it to the next stage, which is why I signed up for the Speakers You and Your Coaching James. I started my speaking career in 2006, but the professional speaking happened only about 3 to 4 years ago. And every stage is an inflection point. Now I'm at a particular stage. And one of the things that I learned from the APSA Singapore this time is, can I create multiple streams of revenue for me as a speaker? And two, can my speaking business run without me actually speaking? So if you ask my key goals, that is what I'm working towards. And that also means increasing my team, expanding and investing a little bit more on creating IPs. And that's where my thought process is headed towards right now.
And because you have this experience, obviously coming from the business community and entrepreneurial community, you are thinking about those multiple streams of income. And I encourage any speaker to have those different, you don't have to have lots, but just to have those different forms of income, because we don't know what happens. Sometimes you might get sick, or maybe the market, the economy crashes in the country you speak a lot in, and there's all the work dries up there. And to have these different income streams just gives you more options. But I'm intrigued when you said the idea of building a speaking business where it doesn't necessarily require all the time for you to be speaking on stage. What is your thinking about that?
Books, online training programs that go on, consulting as a Pravin Shekar grant with a whole lot of my colleagues coming into the play. Because my horizontal is marketing and my vertical is outlier marketing, which is non-traditional marketing, especially when people are stuck doing traditional work, but they still want to grow. You've got to do different things to get on. And that is the area that Pravin Shekar as a brand, as a speaker, I'm trying to create and work towards.
It's an exercise I always do with companies on creativity. When I do creativity training with different organizations, and I call it the OUT exercise, outrageous ideas. So for example, outrageous law firms have no lawyers. Or one I actually use all the time, I'll mention people, was a mutual friend of ours, Frederick Haren. Outrageous books have no words. He actually created a book which didn't really have any words in it, which is sold very, very well, like 250,000 copies or something. But that's actually quite a useful thought experiment to do. Outrageous speakers who don't speak. And there was one I was talking about, like, a conversation with someone the other day who's building a business based upon initially that idea, outrageous speakers that don't speak. And what he's been doing is he's, let's say his fee level is this amount, but he gets a lot of inquiries where clients, they can't necessarily pay that. And in the past, what he's done is he's either given it to another speaker that he knows of, or he's given it to a speaker bureau, for example. But what he's doing now is he's training 2 other speakers. One that will be a little bit lower than him, one that's a lot price is lower than him. That means now when the client comes to him and say, we'd love your topic, we love the fact you speak on, influencer marketing, for example, I would love to have you speak at our event, but it turns out they don't have the budget. Then he can say, well, I tell you what, I can't speak at it, but I have this other speaker I work with who actually can give my speech. I've trained her. I've had to give my speech on influencer marketing, and you can bring her in, and it's for X amount as well. So this outrageous idea of speakers who don't speak, using it as a thought experiment could be quite a useful thing.
I'm an experimenter, James. I'm an entrepreneur experimenter, and all it takes is just a spark for me to try things out. And you never know where it goes unless you try it out. Now, for example, the first virtual summit for me, I invested in a video setup in the professional setup using the tools and tricks that you mentioned. Now that the setup is there, I have started a new video interview series called MFail, where I talk to speakers, leaders, entrepreneurs on their marketing failures, because nobody wants to talk about failures. Everybody's ready to talk about successes, but nobody talks about failures. And when I said this is going to be a weekly interview series, a lot of the entrepreneurs said, hey, I've got a story. Because my view as an entrepreneur, James, and you will relate to it as a coach, is I would rather learn from your mistakes than repeat that. I can go and make newer mistakes and share that with you. So I'm currently compiling a bunch of stories on marketing failures, which will become my stump speech in 2020.
So on that note, then I'm going to have to ask you the question of all the speaking you've been doing, like speaking more professionally since 2009. Can you tell us about a time when you worked on something, maybe a speech, or you were going and doing an event, and you gave it your all, but something didn't quite work out like you'd hoped? And what did you learn from that experience?
Ooh, we all have that, don't we? My first talk in Jakarta. I was invited, flown over. Everything was because the convention head had heard me speak in Berlin, and I had to go and repeat the same talk. It's a talk that was my shtick for that year. And I went there. There was just zero audience participation. The faces were just plain. It was one of my first in that country. I was quite lost halfway through as to what is happening. Is the audience even understanding? I slowed down my English. The only person nodding was the convention head and one colleague of hers who's heard me speak. I went through the motion, finished the talk, got the claps, but I still had the confusion, did it work? Until I had to confront the organizer. At the end of the summit, she took me out to drink some kopi luwak, which is the most expensive coffee that you get out there. And I asked her, listen, I have this nagging feeling that the audience just did not relate. I did not relate with the audience, and I'd like to hear the feedback. And they said, that's how it is here, that people do not show emotion. When I ask them to be interactive, they will not be interactive. So that was a talk that was a personal failure for me, because I had not prepared, I had not spoken, I had not studied that country or the people out there. So the next time when I had to give a talk in Japan, I worked with the organizers a couple of months in advance. I sent them my speech, a written speech for them to translate. And then they also had a simultaneous translator whom I spent some time with the previous evening to work things out. And I had to mix everything up. And that I had a far better response than the one I had in Jakarta. So if you ask me for one of my personal the talks that I did not get a resonance, that would be the talk that I would refer to.
That's fascinating. There's different those cultural differences you find in different places. And I remember, I haven't spoken there yet, but Lloyd Luna, who we both know, he said, he's saying, you've got to come to the Philippines, because the Philippines audiences are the most ecstatic, most exciting audiences. So, and you know what, it's like you go to some countries where the audiences, they're enjoying the speech, like you mentioned there, but they might be sitting with their hands folded, and I think, is this working? Is this what's going on here? And it's only at the end, and they go, "Oh, it's fantastic!" And you're getting people coming up to you afterwards. But in the moment, it feels like it's not working. So I guess it's getting to learn those different cultures. So you're obviously based. You're in southern India, in Chennai. You're highly involved in the Professional Speakers Association of India, which is a great association. You just had your conference, your annual conference a few months ago in Chennai. What's your feeling about the Indian speaking market specifically? Because this is obviously a country that's been on the rise for many, many years. I was just reading a book yesterday about the economic rise of India. How are you feeling just now about the Indian speaking market?
It is evolving, James. For years, there was no concept of paying speakers. At best, I'll pay the airfare, and then you come over, I'll take you out for a drink kind of mentality. But that is changing. But it's a big ship. Turning it is going to take time, which is where the Professional Speakers Association is also evangelizing and educating the market that you go watch a movie, you pay for it. It's a 3-hour movie. Here, it's not just my 1 hour of talk, but the hours of preparation that lead up to the talk. So I can add value to your organization or to your convention. So we are in the process of evangelizing it. We're very confident it'll work through. But as I said, it's a big ship. It's going to turn slowly, but turn it will.
So yes, it's that movement from going from free. And I know other countries have gone through that same challenge, and they've kind of come out now, and it's people start paying a small amount, and then gradually over time it comes up, and then inevitably in any field, and you're going to obviously we'll see this in India as well. You have those superstar speakers there as well, who will get the big bucks, but behind them they bring a new generation of speakers that are coming through. So I'm hugely optimistic about India as a country for speaking, and I say this especially anyone that's watching or listening to this just now. The thing that excites me a lot about India is because you have a large English speaking population. Obviously, there's lots of languages that are spoken across India, but if it's one of those countries where you can go into, because this isn't the same for everywhere, where if you're a native English speaker, you can, there are already audiences, and obviously you have a massive middle class and growing middle class.
Another challenge in front of us is our members. Most of them are very good speakers, but they don't know that they are delivering a value and they can actually go ahead and charge clients for it. So that's a bit of training, and that's a book that I'm writing, James. I reached out to you earlier for that, which came out of a lunch conversation with the members of the Bengaluru chapter of the PSAI. And they said, Pravin, I've been speaking for 5 years, but how can I go ahead and charge? How did you get your first speaking gig? So it was a wonderful 2-hour lunch, and I promised to write a note, and the note became longer and longer. It's now a 50-page ebook, a really quick 25-minute read. But then I said, that's for our members, and I'm going to pass it across free with comments from you, Frederick, and a bunch of others as to how you got your first paid speaking gig and how they can go ahead and charge, how much to charge, how to ask without feeling sheepish. Is a note that's my quickie work. It came out in a couple of weeks, and that's something that I'm sending across.
Fascinating. And actually, as you're saying that, I was also thinking in terms of going the other way. One of the best speakers in the world, Manoj Vasudevan, and Manoj is the Toastmasters. I think he's won it twice, best speaker in the world. And I remember him and I having a conversation once about something he calls the alien advantage, where he always felt that in his home country he was never given the fees and appreciated as much as when he goes abroad and he speaks abroad. So I find this as well. So I'm obviously from the UK, but I rarely speak in my home country. Most of the time I'm speaking in Asia, Middle East, different, like South America as well. And it's a funny thing. So I actually wonder whether the Indian speaker superstars that are going to be coming through, they will become superstars not in India, but actually in other places as well. And who knows? Let's see. Let's see what happens. I mean, I think just now I'm not a football fan, but there was a big match here recently, and it was I think it was the Egyptian footballer for Liverpool, and he's probably one of the most famous. If he wanted to go and give a speech, he could give a speech on anything in the UK just now as well. But how much he would get paid if he gave it in Egypt, I'm not so sure. So I think we're a very interesting kind of inflection point at the moment. And anyone that's watching this or listening to this now, I highly encourage you, try and get to the PSA Professional Speakers Association of India's one of their annual conferences. I believe the next one's happening in New Delhi, I
February.
think.
In Delhi, the 1st and 2nd of Feb.
Fantastic, and we'll put some links here to that as well. So just switching things up a little bit, there's a question I always ask of any speakers that I interview is, what is in your speaker bag? What is in that bag that you carry with you to all of your various speaking engagements, whether you're speaking in Japan or Jakarta or in Jaipur?
Zoom recorder, stickers, bookmarks, and my books.
And you mentioned your books. So how, because this is something I often think about for speakers, you're traveling. Do you normally have them shipped in advance to the place that you're speaking in? Or do you try and get the client to buy a certain number of books in advance? Or you just have a big box that you take with you?
I've done drop shipping. My publisher takes care of that. And in certain cases, I carry them through with me when it's just a sampler. My experiment with getting the clients to buy it has not been too much of a success, and I don't want to push that much. When my talk is a hit, they buy the books themselves on Amazon, so that kind of works out.
And do you have an online resource or an app or a tool that you find very important for the work that you do?
Evernote. I love Evernote. And I fell in love with it 3 years ago while writing my first book. And you never know when inspiration will strike you, James. So it could be, for me, I love watching movies and TV serials, and I have an Evernote called Dialogue Diaries. So you never know when a dialogue inspires, and I quickly pause it, write that down, and at least 2 or 3 instances I've had an entire speech come out of that one dialogue because it inspires you so much.
Fantastic. So just capturing when the idea comes to you. Let's imagine, Pravin, you have to start again. You have to start from scratch. This time, no one knows who you are. You have no connections, but you have all the knowledge that you've acquired over the years as a speaker, as an author, as an entrepreneur. What would you do? How would you restart things?
Invest in a team, invest in automation significantly to build the brand and give value before I sell myself as a speaker or get booked. So that is what I would do, the first thing.
Well, Pravin, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Thanks so much for coming on. I think what you're doing just now with virtual summits, online summits, and how you're building them and training other people on them, I think is amazing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the success of these. And especially, I know you're doing a lot of them for non-profits as well, which I see as a big area there's a lot of opportunity there. What's the best place for people to go to learn more about you? Maybe they want to refer you for a speaking opportunity, or they want to learn about your online summits.
Would be my personal website, pravinshekar.com.
Fantastic. And we're going to put those links here as well. Pravin, thank you so much today. I wish you all the best with all the summits that you're doing, with your speaking, and I'm looking forward to us sharing a stage together at some point in the future.
Oh, and thanks a lot, James, for seeding and sparking the creativity through Speakers U. It's been a phenomenal learning in the last 1 year. As I said, not just for me, but for my team as well. So heartfelt thanks from all of us here to you, James. Keep rocking.
How would you like to get paid to travel the world to share your message and expertise? How would it feel to get paid $5,000, $10,000, or $25,000 to travel first class and stay in 5-star hotels in exotic locations? What I've just described is the lifestyle of international keynote speakers. And you can join me and over 100 of the world's best keynote speakers and speaker trainers as they reveal their secrets to becoming a better speaker and getting booked to travel the world as a professional keynote speaker. And best of all, as it's an online summit, you don't even have to leave home. Plus, it's not going to cost you a single dollar, euro, pound, ruble, peso, or yen if you sign up for the free pass at internationalspeakersummit.com. You're going to receive access to never seen before video interviews with over 40 of the world's best keynote speakers. In addition to this, you'll get access to archive interviews from some of last year's summit guests. So in total, you'll be able to watch in-depth interviews with over 100 incredible speakers and speaker trainers. You'll learn how to find a theme for your keynote presentation, how to craft your talk, how to get booked as a speaker, how much to charge, and ways to get paid to speak on stages all over the world. So what are you waiting for? Head over to internationalspeakersummit.com now.